Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022 at 3 o'clock p.m. That means it's time for Women in Business. A few short notes before I get started today. If you hear anything that sounds like a big loud helicopter while I'm talking, that's a big loud helicopter. The Coast Guard station has been flying their helicopters around for most of the day. I have no idea why. I'm assuming somebody is in trouble on the lake or something, but big, loud helicopters have been flying all over the place. So if you hear them, that's why. They seem to have landed and be quiet now. So maybe they finished whatever it was that they were doing, but gosh, they were really loud for a while. And the next thing I want to do is something that I'm instituting as of this show and will do going forward, which is I want to point out a website or some kind of organization that is helping women in some way and tell you all to go check them out. And the first one that I want to mention is called sheshouldrun.org. And it is for women who are interested in running for office on any level, local, state, national, whatever it is, and for women who are looking to support the women who are running. So if you want to find out how to run for an office, if you want to find out who might be running in your community, if you want to find out ways to support women that are running, this is the website you should look at. They also take donations. They also have merch. If you want to buy some swag to support them, you can do that too. It's a great website. It's a great organization. I think they're doing a lot of good work, and I definitely think we should see more women running for office, and we should see more women in office. So this is a great way to start helping to make that happen. Sheshouldrun.org. You should definitely check it out. So that's my little promo for the day. Not promoting something I'm involved in, which is a little weird. So I think maybe I'll fix that right now by just saying, hey, if you haven't come to join us over in Women in Garment Decoration, please do. We would love to have you. The group is open to anyone in the decoration industry. If you're promo products, if you're a supplier, if you do hard goods, if you do soft goods, if you're a distributor, as long as you're female, you are more than welcome to join us. If you're a crafter, if you do it as a hobby, we're not concerned with any of that. We just want everybody that's in the industry in any way whatsoever to come and join us. So please do. And that is my promo for that. Now, to get to the subject that we're talking about today, which is how to use social media for business. Now, any of you who have seen me speak on this subject at various trade shows or wherever else I might have done it, some of this is going to be stuff that I've said before. And the reason that it's going to be stuff that I've said before is because it's stuff that actually makes sense and is valid. So why reinvent the wheel, honestly? But hopefully there'll be a nugget here that will be something new for you as well, that you will be able to take away from this and use on your own social media plans and platforms. Here's hoping. So, first thing we're going to start with, and this is the most basic, and honestly, it's the one that people trip over the most. Know your market. And I will say up front, and I hate to disillusion anyone who thinks this is so, nobody's market is everyone. Nobody. Not Nike, not Coca-Cola, not Campbell Soup. Nobody's market is everyone. You have to segment in some way. And if you're a smaller business, you have to segment even more. If you make shirts, you're going to have to pick people for whom you want to make shirts, or you're going to have to pick the type of shirts you want to make. If you do hard goods, you're going to have to pick the hard goods you want to make, or the categories of subject matter that you want to put on those hard goods, or the method you want to use. There's a number of different segmentations that can happen. But the most important thing about this, beyond all the segmentation or the types of preferences or whatever it is you have to know who you're trying to reach. And the only way you can know that is if you figure out what you want to do, what you want to sell, and who's going to want that. And that may be dictated by geographical area if you have a brick and mortar. It may be dictated by personal preference if you have a website or brick and mortar too. There's a lot of different things that can determine who is in your market and who you're trying to reach. But you need to know this because until you know what people are in your market, everything else that you try to do in social media is just going to be hit or miss. You might as well just take dollar bills and throw them in the air. You need to know who you're trying to talk to before you can find them and talk to them. That's just the most basic starting point of all of this. So before you do anything else, sit down and figure out who is in your market. And the subset to who is in your market is where are those people? Are they people that you can talk to because they're in your local community and you can get them to come into your brick and mortar if you do a newspaper ad? Are they people that are online and you're going to need to find the social media platforms that they use to be able to talk to them? You need to know that. So knowing your market is key. And honestly, this is the step that a lot of people forget because they either make assumptions that their market will be everybody, or they make assumptions that if they're in a local community that their market's going to be everybody in the community or whatever it is. And so they don't take the time to really figure out who is it I want to reach. And honestly, a lot of times they spend a lot of time and money talking to people who are never going to buy what they have to sell. And so you waste a lot of time. So knowing your market is key. Now, the next question I get when I say know your market is, well, how do I figure that out? Well, figure out what you want to sell and who would logically want to buy that. Honestly, check out your competition. See who's following them. Are they selling to schools? Are they selling to other businesses? Are they selling one-offs to people? What are they doing? And, just give it some common sense. I mean, if you're selling band t-shirts, then okay, your market is bands. That makes sense. If you want to sell graphic t-shirts for cosplay, then maybe Comic-Cons are your market. There are different ways you can figure that out, but the point is you have to sit down and give it the thought to figure it out. So that's the first thing that I want to say here. I'm laughing at Eric here who says, feels like we've been saying that one since the very beginning. Everyone has not a target. And yes, Eric, I think both you and I have been saying this one since almost the beginning. And I think I will probably keep saying it until the end because there are always people who trip over this. So it's just one of the most basic things. And I think sometimes because it is so basic, people forget. They just don't think about it or they take it for granted. So know your market. Figure out who your market is. Figure out who you want to target because that's going to dictate. I'm trying to talk and it's just really not working. It's going to dictate a lot of what you do going forward. So be aware of that. The next thing, and this kind of is a tandem thing with knowing your market, pick your platforms. And in this case, when you are picking your platforms, don't listen to the experts. And that includes me, if I'm included in that category. Don't listen to those people. Don't listen to the people who tell you Facebook is only for old farts now and nobody else is using it. And if you want to get teenagers, you have to be on TikTok. And if you want to, or whatever the latest new thing is. I know Volley's the latest thing that's come out, which is video snippets or something. I haven't really paid much attention to that yet. But there's always new platforms coming out. There's always new things happening. And there's always someone who is willing to write 800 words as to why you should or shouldn't be on a particular platform. The reality is the only one who can figure out what platforms you need to be on is you, because the only one who's trying to reach your particular market is you. And that's, there are other people who are competing for the attention of your market, but the particular set of people that you want to sell to are particular to you, to your skill set, to what you offer, to your geographical location, possibly to any number of qualifications. So you need to figure out who those people are. See tip number one. And then once you know, you need to figure out where they are, not what the experts tell you, not what looks cool, not what's trendy, where those people in your market are. And sometimes they're on a platform you hate, and sometimes they're on a platform that's boring. That's just life. If you want to use social media effectively, you have to get in front of the people who are in your market, and you have to go where those people are. That's just common sense. That's just the basic math of social media. So you need to figure out what platforms you need to be on, and you need to resist the idea that you have to be on all of them, because honestly, that's a waste of time. And you need to resist the idea that the latest, coolest thing is where you need to be, because you might not need to be there. You might, but you might not. And the only way you know that is to know what audience you're trying to reach and to know where they are. And I get it. TikTok is fun. And, Volley is fun, perhaps. I don't know. I've never used it yet, but people seem to be interested in it. And the one before that was fun. And the one before that was Clubhouse was fun for a while. And then it went away, I guess. I don't know. So you need to be aware of not what's trendy and not what's the latest thing that everybody's hopping on. You need to be aware of where your audience is and what's going to get you the most bang for your time, your effort, and your money. That's the simplest way I can put it. And yeah, I mean, everybody wants to be on TikTok because TikTok is fun. But if your audience isn't there, or if you do a bunch of TikToks and you don't get any response and any sales out of it, can be the funnest thing in the world, but honestly, you're wasting your time. So don't do that. Make sure that you know where your audience is and go there. And then learn to use those platforms to the utmost of their ability and keep yourself in front of the people to whom you're trying to sell. That's the basic math of social media. It's really that simple. And people will tell you, experts will tell you, oh, the latest trend is TikTok. Everybody needs to be on TikTok. And they'll have a story of somebody who made $50,000 off their great TikTok videos. And yes, there are those people. And their audience was on TikTok and they had a real flair for it and it worked for them. Yay. Doesn't mean it'll work for you if your audience isn't there. Or honestly, if that particular platform doesn't necessarily suit your personality, then sometimes, if doing little short videos and dancing and being silly isn't your thing, then maybe TikTok doesn't do it for you. Or maybe if you're more verbose and you aren't very succinct, Twitter isn't going to work for you. If you're more about words and you don't like pictures, Pinterest may not work for you. So you have to take that into account too. Though there are ways you can get around that. I mean, you can hire people, you can figure it out. There are ways to fix that part. But the main thing is be where your customers and potential customers are and spend your time on those platforms. Don't spread out over 5 platforms because you think you have to be everywhere. And don't listen to the people who tell you you must be on this platform because that's where all the cool kids are now. Do the research, do the work, take the time, and figure it out for your audience. That's as simple as I can make that. And Wendy says, that was me on Pinterest. Tried it for 6 months, just no engagement or sales. And Pinterest, honestly, I think Pinterest is one of the better options for a lot of decorators. It doesn't work for everyone. So, Wendy tried it and it didn't work for her, and she was smart enough to figure it out. So that works. And let's say good afternoon to a few more people. Wendy, thank you for being here. Good afternoon. Cindy, good afternoon. Beck, thank you for being here. Hello. And Lisa says, good afternoon. Great advice as always. Do your research. Can't stress that one enough. Do your research. And now let's see if I have lost my place or not. Nope, I didn't. Okay, next thing, when you're talking about social media, know what you want to accomplish with social media. And a lot of people say, well, I want more engagement, or, well, I want to sell stuff. What does that mean? What do you want to sell? How much? In what time frame? What does engagement get you? If people comment on your post, what does that get you? How many comments do you want? How much do you want to increase engagement on your profiles? What does that get you? How many of those people who engage transform into customers? How much of the engagement involves, I want to buy something? You have to know your analytics. You have to know your numbers. You have to know what it is you're trying to do. Social media for business has to be strategic because you only have so much time. Your time is precious. Your time is quite literally money. And whether you hire someone to do it, and especially honestly, if you hire someone to do it, you have to know what your goals are. Because if you are paying someone money to manage your social media accounts, how do you know if they're good at it? And that sounds like a really stupid question, but honestly, there are a lot of people who really have no idea. If they point to, well, I increased engagement by 5%. Okay, but how does that increased engagement of 5% transfer into sales? Did it bring in more orders? Did it get more customers to sign up for your newsletter? Did it get more people coming to your website? Do we know the answers to these questions? Do we even know why we should know the answers to these questions? So you need to have some idea of what it is that you want your social media accounts to accomplish. You need to have more of an idea than I want to get more people following me, because more people following you is the baseline, honestly. That's like a no-brainer. If you have an account and people aren't following you regularly, then you need to be looking at what you're doing, because that's like really basic math there. So you want to go a little bit beyond that, which is, what am I trying to do with that account? Do I want people to get to know me so they trust me more? Am I trying to build a community? Am I trying to get people to buy things? Am I trying to get people to interact with me so I can ask them questions and figure out what it is they want to buy? There can be any number of goals that you can have with a social media account. And your goals can vary by platform. And they can vary by the customer segment you're talking to. You can have a lot of different goals, but you just need to be aware of what those goals are, because if you don't know, then you're just shooting in the dark and you have no method of knowing if anything's working, and you have no way of figuring out what it is you're trying to do. So when you're posting, you're just posting randomly. You're not posting with an agenda, so to speak. And this is one of those things that people, I think nowadays, especially because social media is so prevalent and everyone's on it, and it's kind of like, if you see any how to start a business advice, one of the things they'll usually say is you should have social media, and they are not wrong. But what they don't say is you need to know why you have social media. You shouldn't just have it. There should be a purpose for it. There should be a reason why you're doing it beyond, I want people to follow me. You should know what you want to get out of it and why you're spending the time and money on it. And I'll say this again, particularly you should know this if you are paying someone else to do your social media. Because if you don't know what you want to get out of it, you have no way of telling if the people that you're paying are doing what you need them to do. So there needs to be metrics, there needs to be goals, there needs to be something that you can look at and say, they did it or they didn't. That's just the basic thing that you need to be dealing with. And Wendy has a question. Is it good to also be on platforms you like? I like YouTube personally. However, I have no clue just because I like it. gardening videos will I connect with people? That's a really good question, Wendy. And honestly, the answer to this is kind of yes and kind of no. I think if you are working with a platform that you're comfortable with, you're probably going to be better at creating content for that platform. Like, I am not a picture person, so Instagram is still something that I'm kinda like Instagram honestly kind of bores me. I look at the pictures for a little while and then I'm like, I don't really care about this. They're nice pictures, but, I don't really care." And that's because I'm a word person. So, Twitter annoyed me for a while because it made me be succinct in my words, and anyone who's read stuff that I write knows that sometimes I'm not so succinct. So, platforms you like and platforms that suit however you relate on social media are probably going to be a little easier for you to deal with and are probably going to be a little more comfortable. But the why you shouldn't necessarily worry about that part of the answer to this question is if your target audience isn't there, then it doesn't matter if you like the platform or not. If you can't talk to the people who you want to entice or educate or whatever it is to buy your stuff, then it doesn't matter how much you like the platform. Now, I will say, I think most platforms these days, with the exception of like the new ones, the standard big, what is it, five: Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and YouTube. It's likely if you set up an account on any of those platforms, you're probably going to hit at least a segment of your market because those are pretty ubiquitous nowadays. Most people have at least some of those. So it's the ones where you get off in the weeds a little bit, like Clubhouse or Volley, or the things that are a little newer. TikTok, though, that's getting more mainstream, where you might they might be fun, but your audience might not be there. So that's where you can do some research. But I'm sorry, this is a yes or no. I wish I could be one way or the other on this, but honestly, I think that's the right answer. Yes, you're more likely to do well with a platform you enjoy and feel comfortable on, and your content's probably going to be better because you feel comfortable and you enjoy that platform. But no, that platform may not work for you, even if you like it, if your audience isn't there. And I hope that makes sense and answered the question. Let's see what Beck has to say here. Beck says, I'm currently taking an online social media course that covers all platforms. It also covers how each platform works and how to do it step by step. I would be more than happy to share what I learned in that class. If you have a place to do that, Beck, I think that would be great. Or if you want to do some posts in Women in Business, if you're a part of that group, you're more than welcome to do that. I think that's a lovely thing. Now, the one thing I will be how the platform works, I love those sorts of classes. I think that's great. And how to do it step by step, I think that's a little different for every person. That's just my opinion. But I think it's great that you're taking that class. And I think if you are inclined to share the information somewhere, that would be lovely. You can also, when you do decide to share, or if you like, you could share on, where did it go? You could share on the Women in Business page. And you know what helps is if you're in the right place, which it doesn't want to do it. There we go. Women in Business, this is the Facebook page for this show. So if you have items you want to share there, you certainly can. Let's see. So the next thing I want to talk about is following strategically. And this has always been a little kind of tick of mine, I guess is what I want to call it, is that I feel when you are using social media for business, you need to be strategic in who you follow and who you friend. And a big mistake that I see a lot of people make when they're starting out with a page or with some kind of social media platform for their business is that they ask all their friends to follow it, they ask their family to follow it, they ask people who are never going to buy what they have to sell or who are never going to be interested in the content they're putting out to follow their page. And then they look at the follower count and they don't understand why they're not getting anything out of it. So following strategically, friending strategically means looking at people's profiles, looking at the available people you could follow and saying, is this person likely to be a customer? Is this person someone in the community who would be a good connection for me? Is this person someone who might be able to bring some publicity my way, or someone I can learn something from? Numbers are nice, and I'm not going to knock follower numbers. I think, it's nice to have a lot of people following you, but what matters more than who follows you is who you can motivate to do things. That's what I always say when people ask me about influencers. And I say, well, if somebody comes to you and they say, I have 90,000 followers, how many of those followers can they actually get to do something? If they say, buy from this really cool new company I'm working with now, how many of those 90,000 people are going to do it? Because honestly, if they can't motivate those 90,000 people to place an order, or if you have 10,000 followers and you can't motivate them to buy your new subscription box or the new t-shirt you just made or whatever it is, then you don't have anything. So you want to build a follower base that you can motivate to do things, that will engage with you, that is interested in what you have to sell. High numbers are great. They look great. They're impressive. But if you can't make those people do what you want them to do, then they're not worth anything. That's the honest truth. And if you follow strategically, that does mean being a little calculating. That does sometimes mean saying, no, I'm not going to friend you or follow you because you're not doing anything or you're not a connection that I need or that's going to help my business. And for some people, that feels really cold-blooded and they don't like that. But this is for your business. This is in an effort to try to make profit. This is not, I want to be nice to everybody. This is what is going to advance my goals and get me to where I need to be. So there is a difference between personal social media and professional social media. I'm sorry if that's uncomfortable for some people, but that's the reality. So when you're following and when you're friending, it's not about being nice. It honestly is about, what is this going to do for me? How is this going to advance my goals? Is this a person who's going to want to buy what I have to sell? And I've gotten some flack for saying this because people feel like, social media should be all touchy-feely, let's all hug each other. And I think there's a lot of that. And I mean, I see a lot of good in social media. I know a lot of people who are very supportive on social media. I have done a lot of favors for people on social media, and I've had a lot of favors done for me. But I also am aware that it is a tool. It is a tool to ultimately help me promote what I need to promote, hopefully drive business to the businesses that I am working with, and to raise my profile and hopefully help raise the profile of others in my community that I support. And to do that, I have to think strategically. That's just how it works. And let's see what we've got here. And Carolyn says, think like a digitizer. Every time I post a product on Instagram gets requests from digitizers. No, actually don't think like a digitizer, because I really hate that. And honestly, digitizers are one of the most inefficient social media users as a group that I have ever seen, because they randomly message people and they waste time on people that have no hope of ever buying the service that they have to sell. They're just shooting but they're shooting crap randomly out of a gun and hoping they're going to hit somebody, which is the most inefficient way to do social media ever. So don't be digitizers because digitizers are really bad at social media. I am to the point where when digitizers ask to friend me now, they're an automatic decline because most of them have horrible profiles and they're annoying as not all of them. There are a few that are great. And the ones that do it well, I will gladly friend and follow. The ones that are horrible, I won't. And I'm not going to go into who's who in this category, but yes, Wendy, exactly. Spray and pray. It's not going to get you where you want to go. And Carolyn, yeah, I'm not fond of them either. Carolyn says, I just hate them. And the reason that we all hate them and the reason that digitizers as a group tend to have a bad reputation is because they use social media so badly. And honestly, I don't know how any of them are getting anything out of it, or even if they are, because they're not approaching it in any way that's going to be effective or efficient. So don't be digitizers, people. I mean, I work with digitizers. I know digitizers that I respect immensely. There are those who handle it very well, and I'm sure you can think of the names that I'm thinking of because we all know a lot of the same people. But there are those also who are really, really bad at it. So do not take them as models. And yes, Carolyn says, I have my favorites and I follow them, and I do too. And there are digitizers that I love and I enjoy their content very much. So if you're someone that I follow and you're a digitizer, then you're in that category. There you go. But as a group, digitizers tend to be pretty bad at social media. Next thing we need to talk about. It's called social media for a reason. There are people who will set up a profile, put up 3 posts, never interact with anybody who comments or likes those posts, never answer anybody who asks a question on their page, never share anything, never like anybody else's posts, never interact really in any way at all, and then they'll tell me social media doesn't work. It's called social media because you need to be social. You need to like other people's posts. You need to engage with other people's posts. You need to comment on other people's posts. You need to share things that other people post. You need to build a community around your page or your group or whatever it is. If you have a group, especially, you need to build a community inside the group, and that's work. It's constantly replying. It's prodding people to start conversations. It's liking things when people do start conversations. It might be going down a thread of a post and replying to every single comment to get things going. People are on social media because they want to be noticed, is the basic foundation of why most people are on social media. Yes, there's other reasons, but really, you want to be there because you want to make connections. You want to feel like what you say and what you're doing matters. So if you are there and you're trying to build a page or a group or whatever it is for your company, one of the best things you can do is just be responsive. Reply to messages in a timely fashion. Answer questions that are put up on your page. Reply when somebody says, I really liked X. Reach out to your customers and say, hey, will you share a picture of your family wearing the family reunion shirts that I did for you? Or, hey, can you show a picture of that girls' weekend where you all use the tumblers that I did for your 14th annual girls' weekend? Do things that let your customers know that you see them, that you appreciate them, that you're listening to them. And none of this is hard to do, honestly. What happens a lot of the time is that people get so caught up in creating content that they forget that half of the equation is what happens after the content is out. That means the other half of the equation is, what do people say? How do you respond? Who likes it? Who shares it? What do they do with it? That's the other half of this. That's the social part of this. And also, honestly, social media is a way to connect with people that you would never meet in any other way, really. I mean, if you go to trade shows, yes, you can meet people at trade shows. But for the most part, social media is the easiest way to make connections with people you admire, with people who could maybe help advance your business, with people who could educate you, with people who could advise you, any number of things. But the only way to do that is to make connections. And the only way to make connections is to be social. It's like if you went to a real life cocktail party, and I'm horrible about this, I have to say. I'm not good at real life parties. I tend to kind of sit in the corner and I'm not good at small talk. I like deep conversations. So you usually find me with the other person who likes deep conversations sitting in a corner somewhere having some esoteric conversation about something. But it would be like going to a cocktail party and just standing in the corner and never interacting with anyone. That's the equivalent of putting up a social media profile, putting up a couple of posts, and then abandoning the whole thing on social media. So don't be that person. Have a plan and interact. And yes, that takes more time. You can't set it and forget it. You can't set it and ignore it. You have to be aware of what's happening and you have to pay attention and you have to respond in a timely manner. And that all takes effort. But the good thing about this is if you get social and stay social, then you'll also find that people respond to you better. And they're more likely to do what you want them to do when you ask them to do something. So it's called social media for a reason. You need to interact. You need to engage. You need to say thank you when people like your page or when they give you a nice compliment. You need to reach out to people that you think could help you, and you need to help people you think you can help. It has to be a reciprocity sort of arrangement. So be social. That's why it's called social media. Know the tools. The question here that people ask me a lot is, do I need to have a business page? Do I need to have a business profile? The answer to that is always, 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 always yes. You do. You must. And the reason why you do and you must is because business profiles, business pages have more tools available. And they will help you to get to know what's happening on your page and what posts are getting the most likes, what content is being responded to the best, all sorts of things like that. So you don't get those tools with personal profiles. You only get them with business profiles and pages. And honestly, the analytics on Pinterest are amazing now. The analytics on Facebook are great now. Twitter, I'm still not huge on Twitter. The analytics and the tools on YouTube are great. And I'm sorry if you're hearing the slamming. The garbage truck is here now. So they're picking up the garbage bins and making a lot of noise. So if you're hearing that, that's what that is. Apparently, this is noise day. Who knew? So know the tools because the tools are really valuable. So always get a business page, always get a business profile. They'll offer you more analytics. They'll offer you more options. They'll allow you to see what you can do with your posts, what content is working the best, what the times are that people are engaging the most. There's all sorts of things they can tell you. And a business profile honestly just doesn't, or a personal profile, excuse me. Sorry, the garbage truck distracted me a little bit. A personal profile just doesn't look as professional. So just be aware of that. Know the tools that are available, understand what they can do for you, and use them, which is the other half of this. Because these are the tools that are going to help you determine if you're accomplishing your goals or not. So be aware of that. Don't neglect shopping tools. And I have to say, I'm a recent convert to this because I was always kind of like, shopping on social media, blah. And then I started reading about it and then I started using it. I'm using Facebook Shop for Lenny Penny right now. And honestly, it's been pretty dang amazing for what Lenny Penny does and for what Lenny Penny sells. The shopping tools on Facebook have been great and have really upped the profile of the company and have upped sales quite a bit. So that's something that I would really recommend if your target audience is on Facebook. Pinterest shop is another thing that I'm looking at. They've gone through a couple iterations of how people can shop. Their latest one looks kind of interesting. I haven't done a lot with it yet, but I saw some stats that said, I think they were from 2020, so they may be a little different now. But in 2020, 18% of people had purchased something off Facebook and 11% of people had made a purchase on Instagram. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, 18% of people, but if it's a platform you're already on, and if you have the ability to set up a store without taking a huge amount of time, which on Facebook is nominally possible. I mean, we had to do a lot of futzing and pay a little money to make it work for Lenny Penny, but once we got it working, it's now self-loading the products. Pinterest, you can also upload your catalog, your product catalog. I'm assuming most platforms have that kind of option. So it's something that may work for some businesses, and it's something that may be worth it for some businesses. It also may be for some businesses that don't necessarily have a shoppable website or don't want to have a shoppable website. It could be something they could use to do e-commerce without having to build a website. So the shopping tools are there. The shopping tools are available. I'm not going to say they're going to work for everybody. I'm not going to say that they're the silver bullet. I'm just going to say they do work. They may take you may have to hammer on them a little to get them into shape, but they can be useful. And most business profiles now have a shopping option. So take a look at that. The other thing, as long as we're talking about shopping, let's talk about advertising too. Advertising on social media can be a more cost-effective way sometimes than doing like Google ads or retargeting. But again, you have to look at the costs. You have to figure out what your budget is. You have to see what kind of demographics and what kind of audience size you can get, and if you can reach the people you want to reach. And, sometimes honestly with advertising, you have to do a test and see what sort of response you get. And you may have to play with a couple different ad formations to see which ones work and which ones don't before you decide if the platform works for you or not. So you may have to invest a little money to find out if advertising is going to work for you. But just because it's social media, don't assume that shopping and advertising are going to be one, too expensive, or two, not worth it, because they can be as cost effective as any other option and actually more cost effective than some. I mean, I've seen people get burned by Google ads like you would not believe. So at least with social media, pay-per-click is a little different option, and you can set a budget and things like that. So social media shopping and social media advertising could be good tools to have in your arsenal. Definitely something to look at and think about. So Wendy says, on the stores on Facebook, I am attempting to make sure people know I am in the US and have reasonable shipping time. The feedback I received was my clients were scared because they had purchased something from Facebook and it was coming from China or took months to receive. Honestly, if your shop is connected to your profile page or your business page, then people should have very little concern about where you're coming from or where you are, because they should be able to know your business. But I suppose that's something that you can make clear, because yes, there are people that sell on Facebook. I was talking more about not necessarily selling in an ad that people see on Facebook, because I've seen those too, where like, buy a green tea face mask and it comes from China, which is not my thing. But if you're selling on your page and you have a little shop tab on your page, then it should be really evident where the stuff is coming from. It's coming from your business. But, if people do have fears about it's coming from China or it's going to take forever, you can set up policies and you can set up information that will disabuse them of those concerns, basically. But I don't know that a lot of people necessarily who are buying from pages are concerned about that. They might be. I'm not sure. Next thing I want to talk about, pay attention to analytics. I talked about this a little earlier, but I'm hitting it again because it's important. Analytics are one of the single best tools for you to determine how your social media is working. And they're one of the best reasons to have a business page or profile ever. Pay attention to them, because they can tell you the best times of day to post. They can tell you who is on your page, who's responding, what the demographics are of the people, where they come from, where their geographic location is, what their interests are, all that kind of stuff. They can tell you the types of posts that perform the best. If I post this thing, does it work better than if I post this thing? And I know this thing and this thing is, but if I post a video of my machine running, does that work better than if I post a picture of a shirt and say, buy this shirt? And it'll tell you what's getting more engagement. So there are a lot of things that analytics can tell you. Sorry, I was reading a comment and then my brain gets off track for a minute. There are a lot of things analytics can tell you, and I think they're one of the most neglected tools that people have when they're using social media, because a lot of people go, oh yeah, analytics, and they don't pay any attention to it. And analytics can really help you hone in on achieving your goals. It can tell you what's working and what's not working. It can even give you, if your analytics are telling you that all your responses are crap, it might be a sign that this platform is not the platform for you. So pay attention to them, because they can tell you a lot of information that can be really useful, and they can help you refine your strategies, and they can help you figure out what's going to work best for you. So I know I already hit this once, but I wanted to hit it again because analytics can really, really help you. And trust me, I am not an analytics person, but I pay attention, to the social media analytics. The next thing, this next little tip sounds like a very simple thing, but it's actually probably one of the hardest things to do on social media. And that's be you. Be genuine. Be who you are. If you're kooky and crazy and you like kooky and crazy things, then be that on social media. If you're more serious and reticent and you don't talk a lot, then be that on social media. If you're comfortable sharing every intimate detail of your life, don't be that on your business profile. Save that for your personal profile. But if you are more open about talking about controversial subjects, if there are subjects that you care about and you don't care if they maybe will turn off some customers, then put those on your business page. It's your business page. It should be true to you. It should have your personality. Now, what a lot of people try to do is they think they need to have some kind of persona. They think they either need to be all really happy and jolly, or everything needs to be super positive, or everything needs to be 15 exclamation points and blinky lights and fireworks. And it doesn't have to be. It needs to be genuine. It needs to be real. And for some people, honestly, social media is just not comfortable, and maybe they hire somebody else to do that. And when you hire someone else to do your social media, you need to keep in mind one of two things will happen. One of two things will happen. The first one is that you will guide this person to create a persona that is somewhat you or reflects your values of your business. The other thing that happens is you get someone and you turn them loose, and their social media profiles become that person. That can be a good thing and a bad thing, and you have to figure out what your comfort level is with that before you hire someone to do your social media. That is what happened with Enmart. I took over as director of, well, I didn't take over, but I was director of marketing when Enmart came into being. And the social media profiles ended up reflecting my personality. I didn't really set out to do that necessarily. It just kind of happened. It seems to be how I do social media. And for the people that I am producing social media for, they don't necessarily mind that. Other people might. The best way to make sure that social media reflects you is for you to do it. If you hire someone else to do it, you either need to make that person very aware of what is and isn't acceptable, or accept that potentially somebody that isn't you is going to become part of the personality of your company. Or the other alternative is to have such generic social media that it has no personality at all, which is a choice that some people make to have someone else do their social media. And again, it kind of depends on what your social media is intended to do. I don't love that choice, honestly. I can pretty much tell the accounts that somebody has hired a VA or somebody to do their social media. Not always, but most of the time I can tell because the posts are fairly generic. But again, that's a choice. And it's a choice that may work for some people. It depends on what your goal is. It depends on what you want your social media to do. So you have to decide that and figure out what it is that you want your social media to accomplish. But I will say this, if you are doing it or if you're having someone else do it, try to be as genuine as possible. That's just, I think that's good advice in life, honestly, is just try to be as genuine as you possibly can in any situation. But on social media, I think the people who are served best by social media are the people who are being true to who they are. My take on it, everybody might not agree with me. And the last thing that I want to talk about is that you need to understand that social media is a marathon, not a sprint. And what I mean by that is if I had a dime for every person who put up 2 posts and maybe liked a few people's posts and maybe answered 1 or 2 comments and then left everything and let tumbleweeds roll through their profile and then said, I don't know why people aren't following me. Social media doesn't work. It's all a bunch of crap. I would be a rich woman. Social media success is not something that's going to happen overnight. You have to put work into it. As we talked about earlier, you have to put work into figuring out who your audience is. You have to put work into figuring out what you want to get from social media. You have to spend time looking at your analytics. You have to spend time engaging and reacting and building communities. This is a marathon. You're not going to put up a post on Tuesday and have 10,000 followers by Thursday. Most people won't. There is the outlier who will. And small caveat to the whole number of followers thing. Do not ever, 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 ever buy followers. Never do it. Don't. Just don't. Because they're not going to be followers that you need. They're not going to be worth the money. And just don't do it. It's not worth it. Don't do it. Not to mention that if Facebook or any of the social media platforms find out that you're buying followers, you'll usually get kicked off the platform. So don't do it. But just be aware that social media takes patience. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes letting people get to know you and getting to know people. It takes building a community, and that's something that doesn't happen overnight. So be aware of that, be prepared for that, be patient, be diligent. Keep posting even when it feels like you're shutting down a well and nobody is listening to you, because people are listening. You may not always see them, you may not always know it, but there are people paying attention. You have to give them the time to understand that you are really dedicated to this and you're in it for the long haul. You can't expect everything to happen overnight. It requires patience, it requires effort, and sometimes that means posting when it feels like it's not worth it at all. Because take it from me, I've been doing this for a really long time. If you put the effort into it, 9 times out of 10, if you're on the right platform and you're engaging the right people, you will be successful. But it's not going to happen overnight. So, those are my tips for social media today. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for being here. I hope you all got something out of this. If you have any other questions for me, you can certainly bring them up in my little mouse does not want to work today. You can certainly bring them up on the Women in Business Facebook page or in the Women in Garment Decoration Facebook group. Either of those are definitely available to you. And let's see. And thank you for being here, Cindy. Cindy says great information. Thank you for sharing. Like I said, if you have any further questions, you can leave comments on the Women in Business Facebook page. You can leave comments if you're in the Women in Garment Decoration Facebook group. You can hit me up at Linny Penny. You can hit me up at Applique Getaway. You can direct message me. You can send me an email, whatever you want to do. I'm happy to have social media discussions at any point. Thank you all for being here. And the helicopter stayed away. Yay! I will see you all next week. I appreciate your time today. Bye.